You've got McAvaney, Cometti and Roberts. And then you've got these two, nuffies, living in denial. It's Croft and Horto. Welcome to the Fat Side Podcast.
Well, we're in isolation. Rob, it's very odd, isn't it? But we've been lucky enough to get Alex Johnson, former premiership player from the Sydney Swans, on the podcast with us. G'day, Alex.
Adi, how you going? Rob, how you going?
Good, mate. How's isolation treating you there?
Oh, it's pretty odd. I think doing a podcast with people is a lot easier when you're sitting in the same room and those types of things. But with technology these days and on the great program Zoom, that we'll be able to get through it.
Now, Alex, some interesting news came out yesterday, mate. It'd be remiss of us not to ask you, but Northern Blues, who you're currently plying your trade with, unfortunately, given the circumstances, Carlton have parted ways with them. So you must be a bit obviously upset and disappointed by that. What's the overriding feeling at the moment when that news came out?
Yeah, I think it's completely shattering, really. I've only been there for a couple of years, but absolutely love the footy club and felt a real strong connection to the people involved in that footy club. And I think this whole pandemic of coronavirus and those types of things doesn't seem real until it directly affects you. And yesterday was a clear example of that. I know a couple of people with the virus and those types of things, but when an organisation shuts down purely because of what's going on in the world, it's definitely really disappointing. And I'm not too sure what the future holds, but we'll figure that out in due course.
Yeah, it's certainly a strange time for everybody, really, in the game. But today, Alex, we're going to look back into the past because that's all we can really do in lockdown at the moment. There's nothing current going on. We'll talk about your career in a bit of detail, but just as a starter, outside of the Northern Blues, what else have you got going on?
Not a whole lot at the moment, which is majority of the world, I think, in these times. But the future sort of looks, as I said, it's reasonably uncertain with that closing yesterday. Still looking to do a bit of coaching stuff with the school once that gets up and running. With Xavier there, which I did last year, and I'll continue to do this year. And then me and my brother are sort of in the process of starting a business. We're going to start a sandwich shop. When that actually comes about now is not too sure. We'll figure it out in the next little while and hopefully look to get it up and running once this is all over.
As someone who loves a sandwich, I'll certainly be frequenting that cafe. Footy, growing up as a kid, where do you apply your trade outside of school?
Hawthorn Sits was the team. I grew up playing there. I had a brother who's a couple of years older and went down and played a few games for him when I was 9 or 10. So played a couple of years up because Mum wouldn't let me. I was too small to join my own team. So yeah, played with him a few 4 or 5 games, I think, and sort of fell in love with the game then and played up until the coach year at Hawthorn Sits.
There you go. I'll probably go down as one of the worst ever players who played for Hawthorn Sits. I spent our 2016 grand final. I spent pretty much, it's not 2016, sorry, 2006 grand final. I spent the majority of the time on the bench. But I'm sure you applied your trade a lot better than I did.
Yeah, ups and downs, I suppose. It was great fun, great little club down there and behind the G-Bung at Victoria Road Reserve. So, yeah, really enjoyed it. I mean, if you sat on the bench for the grand final, that's fine. You're still a contributor. You were still there.
I got a medal.
You got a medal. That's all that matters.
Now, Alex, I want to take you back and talk about your journey and where you started. Of course, pick 57 in the 2010 National Draft. I know there were a few celebrations that night. You enjoyed yourself. I know it was, I guess, up in the air in terms of what club you went to. But what is that feeling like for a young kid coming through the system and an aspiring footballer when you hear your name read out and all of a sudden you've been picked and selected by an AFL football club? Sum up that feeling for us.
Yeah, it's one of the strangest things that can happen in your life, really. It's unlike any other job or any other career that people choose. You find out on the TV. You don't really have a bit of correspondence. I was interviewed by probably 13 or 14 of the clubs, so I had a pretty good idea that I was, potentially going to get drafted. But as you said, you don't know where you're going to go. I probably had the most contact out of any club with Sydney that checked in. I'd had a bit of surgery after the season as well, and they were ones that were were pretty keen to get the results and the reports on that. So I did have an inkling that they were really keen, but as a kid, and I'm sure a lot of kids go through this, you follow the fantasy drafts and things like that. And I think in 3 out of the 4 fantasy drafts, I was going to Collingwood. So I was thinking, a big family person, a lot of friends in Melbourne and stuff like that. I wanted to stay in Melbourne, but it's weird. I remember it was the 18th of November, 2010. A long time ago now, sitting on the couch with mum, dad, and brother and sister, and your name flashes up at the bottom of the screen, and it's sort of a roller coaster and mixed emotions. Really, it's pretty indescribable.
And it was a big night that night, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of the bigger nights I've had in my life. We ventured to a great establishment factory in Toorak, which was in the early days of its existence, and definitely celebrated accordingly, I think.
Now, before we jump into your first ever game, you spent a lot of time playing as a defender. Were you mainly a defender in your junior days?
No, I wasn't. I was a forward. All my junior days, really. I played a little bit in the defence for Vic Metro in the under-18 National Carnival. But apart from that, I was a forward. I was a centre-half forward for Oakley in my under-18 year, and centre-half forward for Xavier the year before. So, I'd never really played down back. I'd always played my trade up forward.
Now, the first game, West Coast Eagles over there, pretty hostile crowd, and that was during the real peak of the West Coast and Sydney Swans rivalry. Debut game, all snuck up earlier in the year. Just tell me about what were your memories of the very first game?
Yeah, as you said, it snuck up a lot earlier. I arrived in Sydney at pre-season, as I said, with an ankle injury, so couldn't do too much training early days. I don't think I'd started running with the group until January. And I was an 80 kilo, pretty light framed kid. So put a lot of work in, put a lot of weight on, trained, as hard as I could. And then, as you said, it popped up in round 3 against West Coast. And to go over there, it's one of the most hostile environments I've ever sort of been to. The crowd is just absolutely deafening, and you try and silence that with playing on the field. And we were lucky enough too. We got over the line by 13 points that night. With the family there, it was really special. It was everything I sort of hoped and dreamed for, really.
West Coast away would have to be, on paper, probably one of the toughest assignments in footy, Alex. But a lot of people speak about this, and we don't want to throw them under the bus too much, but the West Coast supporters in particular, they're an interesting crowd. They're a little bit feral. Do you remember some of the abuse that was getting hurled at you? How hostile was it? Yeah,
I was extremely hostile. I think you can group the West Coast and Freo supporters together. It must be something about the WA people, but it's extremely hostile playing over there. It was Subiaco back then, and you're copping abuse left, right, and centre. I think I played on Quinton Lynch in the first half, and I think he kicked 4 goals. So I was reminded of it, again and again, throughout that game. And as a 18, 19-year-old kid, you can't do much really. You feel pretty isolated out there. But I was just wrapped that we got on top of them in the second half, and were able to get over the line.
Jumping ahead to 2012, incredible season, of course, for the Swans. Got to the grand final. Now, I'm not sure if you saw it. We did an interview with Tom Boyd last week, and we spoke to him about the grand final parade, and he spoke about how he was locked in the back of a Hilux while people hurled abuse of him. Can you talk to us about your grand final parade experience?
Yeah, I had a listen to the Tom Boyd interview. It's great to see that he's happy after he's sort of retired and made the decision to step away from footy. Yeah, the grand final parade is an interesting one. I remember you guys talking about how it's usually the team that wins that do it, and I don't know why the AFL do it the way they do it, but I think it's great. It gives an opportunity for fans to see the players that are going to take the field the next day. My grand final parade experience is quite different to a few others, I would have thought, and I don't know how many people know this, but Mike Pike, well-known Canadian, very serious character, had a few issues with me that year, I think, and we're in the bus on the way from the MCG after having a bit of a run around, and he was having a stern word to the team manager. He'd found out that we were going to be sitting in the car together. So he said he didn't want to sit in the car with me. So the AFL had to change. This is no word of a lie. And had to change the car. So they've cut my name off on him and taken that off. And I ended up sitting with Dan Hannabury, a great mate of mine, which I was rapt about. But that decision from Mike was an interesting one. It could have really disrupted team chemistry. And I mean, if we'd have lost that game, it would have been all Mike's fault. So it was, it's one of the more bizarre situations I've been in, but he just said, you're too loud. You're too annoying. I can't stand sitting in a car with you. So that was it. And I got to sit with Hannah's and we had a great time.
Fair enough.
Now, Alex, just want to discuss the grand final itself, of course. Absolute nail-biter, very tense game. Nick Malcheski, the moment at the end where he kicks the winning goal is, I guess, something that you'll never forget, and it's something that Sydney fans will cherish till the day they leave this world. What's it like when you see that sailing through and you know deep down that that's probably sealed it for you? There's a great shot of yourself trying to grab Nick. Everyone's converging on him. Can you give us a bit of a snapshot of the feeling, or is it a little bit too hard to sum up?
I mean, it's hard to sum up in words, I suppose. But even when you sort of say that, like, I still get tingles to this day when I see those highlights. And when the ball sailed through, it was just unbelievable. We knew how long was left on the clock. We knew there was about probably 30 seconds left or so, and I was right behind him. So I was hoping that he would have given me a handball, but no, my foot skills I probably would have missed. So I'm glad that he took it upon himself and put it through. But yeah, just the pure elation, the pure joy. We knew we were 10 points up and there's no way we could have lost it. So you have that sort of 30 to 40 seconds to just really relish in it and cherish it. And I remember vividly running back to the back line with Melbourne, sort of just yahooing and carrying on and just saying, we've got this and, we've got over the line. It's hands down probably the best moment in my life to this date.
Your footballing story after essentially hitting the ultimate peak in the game does take a tragic turn from here. You follow on and you do your first knee. The next year, a second, more recovery, and then a third, and then this cycle sort of starts. For the listeners who aren't aware, can you explain the story of when you first sort of went down with this trouble, and then how it sort of grew on from there?
Yeah, I think it's obviously been really well documented since 2012. But I was a 20-year-old kid. I played 45 games to that point, which had exceeded all my expectations, and obviously I had a premiership medal as well, which was is the ultimate in footy. And there's guys that played for 15 years that never reached those heights. I'd done a full pre-season in 2013. I put a little bit more weight on, got a little bit fitter and stronger, and felt as though that I could really take my game to another level. It was the third Mad Cup game in Sydney against the Gold Coast out of Blacktown on a Saturday night, the 9th of March, 2013. And I was sort of 10, 11, 12 minutes into the first quarter. I'd had a reasonable start, a few touches, felt good. Felt as though I could sort of go into round one in a couple of weeks' time and really continue on with my progression, I suppose. I just turned off my left foot to tackle Jago O'Meara and just went down with a knee. Anyone who's done an ACL knows what the feeling is like. It's excruciating pain for probably 30 seconds, and then you feel fine. I was in the room with the doctors and not quite sure, what was going on. I'd never done an injury like it, and trying to convince him that, I think I'll be right. Like, just let me back out there. And he was certain. He's a really good doctor that was certain at the time that I'd done my knee, and that'd be it for 12 months.
When you're on the sidelines at a footy club, obviously pretty hard watching all your teammates out there playing, especially when a team is going as well as the Sydney Swans. Who were the people that really helped you through this time? Were there other players on the injury list with you, or even guys who were playing that, got their arms around you and sort of helped you through?
Yeah, I think you sort of form groups within the team, that the rehab group becomes a sort of team within a team, I suppose. And I was lucky. Obviously, the team was pretty unlucky in 2013. We had probably 10, 11 injuries of guys that were, in the starting 22. Guys like, Marty Matner, Adam Goods, Ray Shaw went down with a knee, Hannes for stints. There was guys that, Sam Reid as well. I spent a lot of time in rehab with Sam Reid over the journey. These guys, you try and push each other and try and help them get out there. But, the whole footy club was unbelievable for me. They never once decided to stand me down or anything like that. They stood by me through the whole, ups and downs of what I went through. But someone like Ray Shaw was huge for me. He was, an unofficial mentor when I first got to the club. We're reasonably similar, me and Race, in the way we go about it. he was a super support for me. And then someone like Nick Malcheski was unbelievable too. He'd obviously had challenges of going down with knees himself. So to have someone to lean on with his experience and those types of things was huge. And then, I mean, right from the top with Dean Moore, who was football manager, and John Longmire as well, obviously the senior coach, they were huge for me as well in supporting me and backing every decision that I wanted to make.
Now, Alex, when you go through that, and you're one of arguably the most luckless players in the AFL system, continuously fighting back and then succumbing to knee injuries. From a mental health perspective, how important was it to just get yourself around certain people that could lift your spirits? And what were some of the things you actually tried to do to maybe get away from the high pressure environment that is the AFL, so it didn't feel as burdensome as it was? Because a lot of players unfortunately have to go through this. It is a part of the game. So were there a few things that you'd maybe learnt after, say, the second time you'd done it, moving into your third and fourth knee reco, where you thought, you know what, I'm going to stay away from the game. I'm going to focus on a couple of things in my life that are going to help me mentally? What were those things that you would do to make yourself feel better?
Yeah, it is an interesting one, and I think the amount I learnt over the journey was huge. I think the first couple of years I hate watching footy. I'm a terrible watcher of footy. I've obviously become a decent one now because of the amount of time I spent out. But early days, I just didn't want to be around it. You sort of just try and remove yourself as much as you can. I probably was partying too much and hanging out with mates that weren't in the similar environment of the professional environment of footy. So yeah, you sort of use that as a bit of a release, which is obviously not the greatest thing. And then I used travel as well. The club were really good and lenient in terms of letting me go away and travel when I had different setbacks and things like that. So those experiences were great for me. I got to do things that a lot of footballers don't get to do, like a summer in Europe, and went to the World Cup in 2014 in Brazil as well, which is something I'll sort of never forget. It is, as I said, I completely removed myself from the game. I didn't want to be around it. I didn't want to help other people. You sort of you become pretty insular and selfish. You just sort of worry about yourself. And I think probably at the time I was a bit naive. I didn't identify it as, a mental health issue, but there's no doubt looking back and the maturity and the experience I've gained from going through something like that, you realise that talking to people and getting around people, does help you a lot. When I sort of went through third and fourth and fifth year out of the game, I plugged back in, and someone that helped me with that was Ray Shaw. He obviously retired from footy in 2015 and became the reserves coach at Sydney and took me under his wing, and I helped him. I was his assistant for 2 years there, which gave me a purpose again, I suppose, and enabled me to engage with the younger guys coming through and share my wisdom and experience of what I'd gained over the time of being in the footy environment and playing at the highest level, obviously.
You get to a point where it starts to become a reality that you're tracking well and you're almost upon a return. And I think it's 2,100 days, Alex, where the media starts to talk about the possibility of you getting back into the AFL system and playing a senior game of footy again. What was that build-up like before you did make the return that we'll speak to in just a moment against Collingwood? Incredible drama that night. But what was the build-up like? Did you have it in the back of your mind that, oh no, like you're a little bit tentative, you're playing in the knee fall? Were you thinking, knowing my luck, like I'll get super close and then within a couple of weeks, it's a sixth knee? Was there any fear or doubt during that process? Because from my point of view, having been someone that hasn't suffered from any particular major injuries, I guess from a fan outside looking in, I can only imagine that that's in the back of your mind. How did you keep yourself so focused and so grounded so you could get to that point just before you played your next game again?
Yeah, it is an interesting one, really. I mean, the mental side of sport is massive, and especially overcoming injuries and coming back from injuries. You need to be mentally strong and mentally positive and have belief. I think from probably the end of 2015, when I sat down with probably 4 or 5 surgeons across the country, and 3 of them said you should definitely retire and give it away. The the reality of, oh, maybe this is not going to work and maybe I won't get back to play sort of sunk in then. But I had my final reconstruction in 2016. And from there, I just, we changed a bit of the rehab. I went over to the States in Philadelphia and trained with a guy by the name of Bill Knowles for a couple of weeks, who's a, exercise sort of scientist that changes the way you move a little bit and takes pressure off, individual knees and makes it a whole body sort of approach and makes you more functional than what you have been previously. But yeah, I played probably 8 or 9 games in the NEAFL in the second half of 2017. And that gave me a lot of confidence in terms of my body being good. My footy, as it stood, wasn't great. And that was the first time Sydney sort of said to me, like, we're not going to offer you a contract. This is probably the end of the line. And I remember calling sort of 3 meetings on my own with John and Tom Harley, who was the football manager at that time. And I said, look, I will get back and play AFL. I've got belief in myself. You've sort of got to back me in. And it was the first time that reality had sunk in that this is a business and they're not just going to stand by anyone. They need to make sure that, you are going to contribute. I'd contributed nothing in five years. So you do understand their point of view in terms of saying, no, we don't think we'll go with you. But sort of went there and I came back in for the 2018 pre-season and, was in really good nick, running well, felt strong. Then sort of they offered me a contract straight away after week 1, which I was rapt about. And I knew I'd be able to earn that because of the shape I could come back in and the dedication I put into training. And then, we had a groin injury that was a bit of an overuse thing about obviously decondition and recondition so many times with the knees I've been through to put too much load on the groin. So I had a groin operation in early Feb 2018. So then you sort of start to think, oh, maybe this was a waste of time. And you're having conversations with them, you sort of start to feel bad really that they've wasted a spot on you and all of those types of things. But my belief was always there that I could get over it and get back. And as you said, I got an opportunity in August 2018. It had been a couple of weeks in the NEAFL that I'd started to play reasonable footy, and I was having the conversations and I sort of felt confident enough to go to Horse and go to Reece and say, look, I think I'm ready to play. You've got to give me an opportunity. The team wasn't going overly well at that time. I think we'd lost 3 out of 4, and I thought I was going to play against Essendon the week before and missed out, and the NEAFL didn't have a game, and I thought, this has pushed my, maybe it's not going to happen, maybe it's not going to happen. And then you just become a footballer that goes through everything, goes through the selection headaches. And I've never been dropped in my footy career, which I'm really fortunate to. There's guys that go in and out of the team and aren't sure whether they'll play each week. And I never had those worries when I was fit. So it was the first time that I was facing those anxieties of, am I actually going to play here? And then, I got the call there. As you said, I think the media started to whisper. I think someone on SEN said something on the Wednesday morning before the Collingwood game, which a few mates started to text me and say, oh, are you playing? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I haven't heard anything. But the nature of the industry, whispers start mounting. And, John called me on the Wednesday morning and, I went into the match committee room and I'd had a bit of a shoulder injury as well. So I was a pretty broken man in terms of injuries at that point. But my shoulder had popped out a few times that year. And he sort of said, oh, when was the last time that had happened? And, do you think you're fit to play? And, do you think you'll be able to play? And I was like, yeah, I've sort of been telling you for the last month that I think I'm right to play. And, he revealed the team board and my name was on the board against Mason Cox. And, as a kid, you dream of playing AFL footy. You dream of debuting and, playing in a premiership and those types of things. But the 6 years that I'd spent out, I just dreamt of that moment of actually seeing my name on an AFL team sheet again. And, to share that one-on-one with Horse, who's obviously my only AFL coach and had done massive things for me, giving me my first opportunity. It was a really special moment and just the pure elation and joy and excitement. And, it's unbelievable. It's indescribable of what transpired over the next few days leading into that game against Collingwood.
It's interesting to think in your career that you think about the highs. You've sort of got the debut game, the grand final, and then obviously this game. Would you, rank this comeback game almost bigger for you emotionally than, say, your debut or even the grand final?
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think obviously my greatest footy achievement is the grand final, no doubt about it. in terms of the emotion associated with making a return and the amount of work I'd put in, I mean, it's sort of, I debuted round 3 in my first year, which is a lot earlier than what I'd thought. And
Yeah.
the grand final came about pretty quickly in my second year as well. And yeah, obviously I'd worked really hard as a kid to get there, but in terms of the emotional strain and the ups and downs, I'd had, 11 operations on my knees or 12 operations on my knees, being up and down, seeing the highs and lows of footy, and to get that news, yeah, there's no doubt about it. It was much bigger than say the debut or the grand final.
The game itself, you played really, really well, and you were coming up on the inform forward of the competition in Mason Cox at the time. It was sort of taking the AFL world by storm. How did you feel actually getting back out there again?
Yeah, I felt great. As I said, I'd had a reasonable couple of years, sort of an apprenticeship, I suppose, to get back in, and I wasn't really worried about my knees. My body felt really good. I thought I can compete, and yeah, the game itself was just unbelievable. It was sort of everything I'd hoped for. Really, it was Harry Cunningham's 100th game as well, a really close mate of mine, and as I said, the team hadn't been going well. We'd lost 3 out of the last 4. It was a must win against Collingwood, who were in form, and yeah, I played against Mason Cox the majority of the night, an absolute monster of a man. But yeah, I was wrapped with how I went, and we got over the line by 2 points in the end, and it was just unbelievable. It's sort of, again, everything I'd hoped and dreamed for, and more, really.
Alex, the next week, it starts to unravel again. A 6th knee against Melbourne. I think it was a Sunday game. I remember being there actually in the stands with your brother Richie. Your mum and dad were there, of course, watching on. Melbourne residents. It was kind of it was beautifully set up, because as a child, I know you supported the Melbourne Football Club, and it was a massive game because Melbourne had to win that game to keep themselves in finals contention. They'd obviously had a big drought, hadn't made the finals for 12 years. And again, huge for Sydney. Like you said, coming out of a bit of a form slump, got over Collingwood the previous week, and I think it was an incident with Jesse Hogan. You got matched up with him, and he's a pretty good lateral mover, and he just made a little move on you, and it buckled underneath you. And I believe it was your other knee as well. It's tough, isn't it, to really, again, sum up the emotion of that moment. But one thing I do remember is The Age came out with a photo of your mother looking at you from the boundary line when you're on the sideline, sitting there on the bench, you're clearly distraught, all the other players and coaches getting around you. In that moment, how tough was it to realise that was probably the end of your career, knowing AFL career, that is, knowing that it just got started again?
Yeah, I mean, it was, say a week's a long time in footy, but those 8 days are the longest, and to go from the high to the heights to to the low of the lows, really, it was unbelievable. It's the first time in probably 6 years that I'd felt like a AFL footballer again. I remember going in after a reasonable game against Collingwood, and obviously a great win for the footy club, and sitting down with Reece, and then looking at my next matchup, which was going to be Jesse Hogan, obviously a super player in the competition, and someone I'd watched on from the sidelines for the last few years, and was really eager to take on and ideally beat. But yeah, it was 21, 22 minutes into that game at the MCG, the first time I'd been back there, on a playing in a playing capacity since the grand final. And yeah, just on the boundary line there, just a sharp turn, and turned off my right knee, as you said, my good knee. I never had an issue with it, and it just buckled under me. I'd never done a knee in an AFL game, and to do it in that game, it was a reasonable crowd in the MCG. As you said, a huge game for Melbourne, and another really big game for us. Finals contention, final spot on the line for both of us, really. But yeah, it's just shattering, really. I knew straight away. A couple of guys came over and were like, you're right, and I was like, yeah, I think I'll be right. I think I've done my knee or whatever. You pick and choose who you say it to. I said it to the older guys, and to the younger guys, you say, no, you'll be fine, because they need to concentrate on the job at hand. But yeah, I went to the bench, and you sort of know the whole footy world's on you, and you guys know that the radio commentators and those types behind the bench, they're all looking for a reaction and seeing what it looks like for me. And yeah, that photo, I think Wayne Lovely took it of mum looking over the bench and looking at me, and she just sort of looked, and I said, "Yeah, I think I've done it." Not really need to say anything, just a look on my face, and it's heart wrenching, and it's heart wrenching for those around you. I had a lot of family and friends in the stands that day, and the silence that fell over the ground was absolutely deafening. You realise that it's all football fans that feel for you, and it's not just the Sydney supporters that have watched you or anything. Everyone can resonate with how you're feeling, and it puts sort of everything into perspective, I suppose. And then it's the question in your mind of how do I handle this? Do I sort of just throw it all in and show all my emotion, or do I sort of just keep strong and see how we go? And that's what I decided to do. I went out to the quarter time huddle and spoke to Alira about a couple of things he needed to change because he was going to play on Hogan, and spoke to a couple of the other defenders about what we needed to do to get on top of them, as I knew it was a really important game for the club. And then, as I said before, like, I lied to a couple of the younger boys and said, "No, I'll be fine. I'll be back next week or whatever." And then you go down to the rooms. Pretty lonely place during a game is the depths of the MCG when no one's down there. And I just sat in the medical room in the Swans rooms with my family, and just let the emotions out then, I suppose.
It was a tragic moment, that's for certain, Alex. And I know, watching that game at home, there are a lot of people who, all around the AFL world, certainly felt it that day. It was a tragic ending, to say the least. Now, at the moment, everyone is in quarantine. We're all locked in, so we're going to play a couple of games to end the show. Alex, we're going to brighten the mood a little bit. So we've got two games. We've got quarantine. Would you rather, which is basically deciding which things you like to do, and then we're going to end with a bit of trivia, because my WhatsApps have just been going mental of people playing trivia at the moment because there's not much else to do. So my first question for you, Alex, is a super important one. Would you rather spend a day on the couch watching A, the original 3 Star Wars movies, B, the 3 Lord of the Rings extended editions, C, The Godfather Part 1, 2 and 3, or D, a 6-minute YouTube video of your career highlights on repeat for 9 hours?
100% the YouTube video. That's an absolute no-brainer for me.
There we go. I like that. Next one. Would you rather eat spaghetti bolognese for dinner for a week, eat veggie stir fry for dinner for a week, eat toasted ham and cheese sangers for a week, or Uber Eats a Happy Meal from McDonald's to your house every day?
Well, I'll just stick with what I've been doing for the last couple of weeks, and Uber Eats a Happy Meal.
There we go. Would you rather play the following video game for a day? A, Call of Duty, B, FIFA, C, World of Warcraft, or D, play chess against the computer?
I think Adrian knows the answer to this, and it'd be FIFA. Me and 80 had some good battles back in the day, and I think one of the games I bet you 16-0, 80.
No, I don't remember that day. But what I actually do remember is the only time I could ever beat you is when I'd sock back a few beers because I could focus, and that was it. But yes, you were very good, Alex. You used to beat most of our mates. I think Mr. Josh Jeans fancied himself, but we'll put it on record today and let him know that he was putrid.
He was absolutely terrible.
Correct.
No good. And the last one for the would you rather: would you rather be quarantined for a month with A, John Longmire, B, Lance Franklin, C, Josh Kennedy, or D, Lewis Roberts Thompson?
The great Lewis Roberts Thompson.
LRT. Good value.
LRT. He's outstanding. He's one of the great people in footy, really. I got along with LRT really well, so we'd have some good fun. That's nothing against the other 3, by the way. I wouldn't mind any of them, but definitely LRT takes the cake.
Yeah.
Unsung hero.
Yeah. Well, luckily for Mike Pike, he doesn't have to be quarantined with you. I don't think he would have coped by the sound of things.
I don't think you'd last too long, to be honest.
All right, and we're going to wrap up with a bit of quarantine quiz. I'm going to try and do this with all the people we get on now while we're in quarantine. Bit of fun trivia. So this is real general knowledge stuff, Alex. It's going to test you. Question 1: what is the largest mammal on Earth?
The whale.
Yeah, I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to give you a point for that. It's the blue whale, but I'm going to give you a point.
The whale.
The whale.
The whale. That doesn't. There's only the blue one. That's all the people remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Question two. What year was the last Apollo mission to the moon?
2011.
No, it was 1972, Alex. So we'll. All right, astronomy is definitely not your strong suit.
Definitely not. Maybe I should have read some space books while I was out.
Rob, you might have to take a few questions out. We're going to make Alex look really silly.
No, I'm
happy with that.
That's kind of the point. Question three.
Probably already happened in this interview.
Yeah. Who was the first Prime Minister of Australia?
Oh, yeah. What's his name? Old mate.
Did you do Oz history back at Xavier College, Alex?
I was at school a long time ago. I forgot the majority of it. What was his name? I don't know.
It was.
Can I phone a friend?
Yeah, phone me. I've got the answers in front of me.
Yeah, perfect.
Sir Edmund Barton.
There you go, Sir Edmund Barton.
Also known as Old Mate.
He was the first old mate there ever was. Question 4. I'll give you a multiple choice for this one to make it a bit easier.
I'm going to look that stupid.
Okay. Question 4. Timbuktu is a city of which African country? Is it A, Mali, B, Mauritania, C, Kenya, or D, South Africa?
I was just over in Africa, actually. I should know this. No, I definitely don't know this, but I'm going to go with Kenya.
No, incorrect. It was Mali. So there you go.
Wrong again, Alex.
This is a sports question. You might know this one. How many?
What are we on?
You're on one. Yeah. How many gold medals did Australia win at the 2016 Olympics?
Hang on, is this closest to the pin?
Well, he's not competing against anyone, so it's just he's got to guess it right.
Oh.
How many gold medals? Yeah, how many gold medals? I'll give you a clue. It's under 10.
Yeah, I was going to say 8.
Oh, correct. On the money. Bang.
Love my Olympics. Disappointed it's not going to go ahead this year.
Yeah, it is pretty sad. So that's 2 points for you, Alex. Question 6, bit of geography for you. Can you name 3 American states that start with the letter A?
Arizona.
Yep, that's one.
I'm good at this, aren't I?
Yeah.
How about if I Google them?
Google them while we're talking. Yeah, that's cheating, mate. That's cheating.
Oh, well, that's what you're doing, trivia.
All right.
Sweet home. Come on.
Alabama.
There you go. That's 2. One more. I'll give you a clue. It's cold. It's really cold. Way up the top.
Yeah, I'm not.
It was
Alaska. Alaska, yeah, we go. Yeah, I knew that.
Arkansas.
I was thinking of the Arkansas one. I wasn't sure how it was pronounced. I haven't spent much time over in America, to be fair. I'm more of a Europe man than America.
Okay. All right. Question 7. This is another history question for you here, Alex. Who were the 3 Axis powers during World War II? Who were the Axis powers? Have you seen any World War II movies ever?
He's Googling it.
Yeah, I've seen a few.
Who are the bad guys? Basically the clue.
This is horrific, isn't it?
He's Googling it.
My hands are here.
Hands are here. Hands are up.
Think about the countries that were involved.
Yeah, which countries did Australia fight against in the war, basically?
This is bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't know. I'll give up.
Who did they fight against in the Second World War?
Who did we fight against?
Thinking of World War One.
No, we're
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah, well, I'd prefer World War One.
Oh, you're a World War One. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna skip forward to the last question because I reckon I've made these a bit too hard.
They're very hard.
All right, question. Last question, Alex. This is all or nothing. This is an important question. In Mario Kart 64, can you name all of the items that you can get from one of the boxes, the item boxes? Can you name all the items you can get?
Yeah, red turtle shells,
Yep.
green turtle shells,
Yep.
the fake box,
Yep.
question box,
Yep.
lightning strike,
Yep.
and the star, the flashing star that,
Yep. That's a couple.
and the squid ink.
Oh no, that's in the newer one. No, we're going back to
yeah.
we're talking OG Mario Kart here.
Oh, I play Wii.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Mr. Fancy here with his Wii.
What's the last one?
Help him. Yeah, banana. There's one more that you're missing. Actually, there's a couple more that you're missing.
Oh, the slam down?
No, that's
the lightning.
No, I already said lightning, Adrian.
give him a clue, AD. You're the self-proclaimed Mario Kart champion.
There's one that's invisible.
Yeah, the ghost.
Yeah, the ghost. Yeah, that and the mushroom. I'm going to give you a point, Alex, just because I feel sorry for you.
Oh, and the mushroom.
Yeah.
And the mushroom.
Well, we might have to tee up a game of Wii Mario Kart sometime soon, mate, because I don't think anyone's going to be leaving their houses much at all. So might have to get a bit of a game going on.
Yeah, sounds good.
Alex, we'll leave you to it, mate. Thanks a lot for taking us down memory lane. A lot of highs, a lot of lows in your career. Interesting time for the AFL and the VFL and just footy in general at the moment. But great to have a chat with you. Go and scrub up on your general trivia while you're in lockdown, mate, because that was abysmal.
Read a book.
That was terrible. That's the worst performed, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't great.
I prefer the bulldog and chihuahua that you gave to Tom Boyd. I did like that segment, Rob. I thought it was good.
Oh, see, someone likes it. All right. Lewis Roberts Thompson, bulldog or chihuahua?
Absolute bulldog.
There we go.
Who was a chihuahua?
Who was a chihuahua at Sydney?
Who's the Dan Hannabury's a bit of a chihuahua.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
See, all right, that's a good segment. I'm going to keep that.
Well, we're going to leave it on that. We're going to leave it on the chihuahua. Dan Hannabury, he'll love that one. Mate, thanks a lot for jumping on.
No worries at all. Thanks for having me.